Welcome into Metaverse Insider. Today we have a lot of topics. Paul, how's it going today?
Excellent, man. This is a big one. We actually had to forego the intro because of this. It feels like a lot happening here. What is happening with eBay, Blur, all of this news?
Absolutely. I mean, Blur and OpenSea kind of going at war here in terms of the macro NFT space. We have some Dune charts here showing some of that kind of volume and kind of growth in market share from Blur itself. Paul, what do you think about this situation that's developing?
I was looking at the leaderboard here just on Ultrasound Money, and what amazed me was just how fast Blur has literally blurred up the chart. Passing OpenSea last week and now Uniswap as of today over the last day. This is pretty impressive, which only kind of, to me at least, it signals that the appetite for NFTs is absolutely exploding right now within what we're seeing with blockchain. So good stuff.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and then Juna, of course, chiming in on this as well, deeming Blur kind of the biggest threat to OpenSea's dominance, showing some of the numbers there as well in the charts, and X2Y2, another NFT marketplace as well, kind of breaking it down and chiming in on this whole topic and situation as it develops too. So very interesting here. Even Yatsu here talking a little bit about royalties in this situation, saying it's not really a technical issue, but it's a social convention. Very curious, Paul, what's your thoughts on this in terms of what you see in royalties and how it's developing right now in the NFT space?
Well, Animoca is by far the 800-pound gorilla, I think, in terms of the explosion of where NFTs, gaming, all of that will really play into it. So their vision of what royalties, and just in general, when you think about the architecture of NFTs as a whole, if Animoca is behind it or has a certain vision on it, I think a lot of developers and even whether it's game developers, houses, NFT projects, etc., will most likely adopt a lot of what they're talking about.
Yeah, they're kind of like the gold standard here in the wider metaverse, if you will. And even Yatsu showing he just dropped I believe it's a commercial use license as well in one of the tweets there, just for artists and individuals to use in terms of how they're approaching these royalties and situations around this. So very interesting though. And yeah, as we kind of zoom out on the space as a whole, we know eBay, they've been doing a lot in terms of obviously NFT adoption, including Wayne Gretzky. And Paul, I'm very curious, what's your thoughts on eBay stepping into the space? Will they become like the 1,000 pound or 9,000 pound gorilla in the room?
Well, the key here with eBay is their acquisitions over the past couple of years. I think this goes back into how a lot of tech companies move in the marketplace. If you look at Meta, and what they were able to do in the early stages of what we're seeing now in Meta, the VR space, all of that was laid in terms of the groundwork. Could eBay be in that very kind of interesting scenario? Collectibles, a natural, because it's already something that happens on eBay. They have their authenticity layer, which goes around luxury goods, sneakers, all that kind of stuff. I don't know if you've ever bought sneakers on eBay, but you get those full authenticity checkpoints.
For sure. And you can see here, Wayne Gretzky, if you look those up, for example, he's dropped some NFTs on they have some integrations here with his NFTs, and you can see sold out all the way down. You can see the appetite for buying these NFTs, especially through a platform like eBay, where people know this brand. They kind of trust eBay because it's been around for a while. Like you mentioned, the accuracy, they're tackling that as well, rolling features out like the eBay Vault, for example. And as you mentioned, the acquisition of the marketplace KnownOrigin and some of their stats we're kind of seeing in terms of growth, daily users going up, the unique on-chain wallets going up in this past month. And this is going to be definitely interesting watching them definitely lay the groundwork and how they're approaching even contracts. I noticed that they are, basically making it easier for artists to roll out NFTs. KnownOrigin is with their creator contracts, which is deemed, no code, if you will. Paul, curious what your thoughts on that. eBay making it easy. Buying KnownOrigin here, rolling out these types of contracts, making it easier. What's your thoughts on kind of this approach?
This to me is the killer application for NFTs and maybe the future of digital collectibles as a whole. The easier it is for creators to make this happen, especially if you look at a brand like eBay scaling this up. The other thing I think that will play into this is eBay will most likely set the path for a lot of other major brands, and that will be in the music industry, the film industry, you name it. We'll see those kinds of implementations because it will be a new standard in terms of simplicity, ease of use, stuff for creators to really kind of jump into. A couple of things they were hitting on, is this whole main benefits area, control, deploying your own contract, taking control of the design, content, all that. This is all in the good space of where I think the future of this is going. And the other thing was this whole future-proofing your work in case marketplaces go down. So a lot of thought process going into this, but I think it's still very early in terms of not only eBay, but their strategies. Not that they're new to this game by far. I think, in terms of collectibles and understanding this marketplace, they probably have more data than anybody, including OpenSea, Blur, you name it. They've been doing this for 2 decades, so it's not something I think they're going to be new at.
Yeah, absolutely. And KnownOrigin, it looks like they're set to launch as well, from according to their tweet from February 16th, that it goes live in terms of their this draw of the undead. They have a new collection coming up.
Right.
But you can see here that you're able to deploy and mint work on your own contract via their portal. And even eBay, going back to that, and you can see the different categories, and you can see people watching a lot of these NFTs on their marketplace. I mean, some of them, going for $1,000, some of them $98. And as you mentioned, eBay really knows, this whole genre of digital collecting, in a sense that they've already been a leader in terms of the physical collectibles. So I could see them definitely, integrating, this even at a further, I guess, level, and making it easier for collectors to, transact on their marketplace using a feature like the eBay Vault, if you will.
Yeah, I was looking at their art NFTs, crypto art, just in general. I think they've already shown that they're ready for it. Then you've got KnownOrigin playing into this, which essentially is the eBay engine for what we're going to see in terms of collectibles. So to me, this is just a matter of time before all of this takes off. I want to jump over to this clip by VeVe, though, which I think is an interesting analysis of what's happening here. Listen to what he had to say.
In some of the platform that we selected, or even with cryptocurrency, one of them have went under. A quite famous one went down. So you can imagine that if I was allowing these users to send their collectibles into this platform that has gone under, where now you have zero access to it, that's going to create a second wave of problems.
It's going to be your fault, essentially. Yeah. Everyone's going to blame you. Yeah.
Because they think we authorize and we partner with these companies. So it will just come back to bite us. So we wanted to make sure that before everything is fully interruptible, fully going in and out, that it is, we select the right places, because most of our users, collectors out there, and we had some executive meeting yesterday, we are still gaining new users and new first purchase every single day on VeVe. And most of these new users coming on, they actually just a fan. They're fandoms of pop culture. They're fandoms of the movie studios, the studios that we bring out the collectible from. And we kind of want that user journey experience to be seamlessly. They don't actually even need to think about their private key and so on. As the industry evolve, we're going to be bringing these out and these functions for sure. Because I really do believe, like you say, if I own one of your collectibles and I take it home, I can travel with it, I can sell it on eBay and so on. And saying that, all these other major multinational companies, such as I believe eBay, Amazon, all these large corporations are building marketplaces. So eventually these assets can be traded through those platforms.
Yeah,
So he hit on it right there. He already believes this is occurring. And if you look at some of the things we were showing here, I mean, right there's Disney. Recognize that, Kyle?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
one of
the
the lenticular
that's
cards.
a VeVe collectible. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So point being is that apparently we're going to see a very quick ramp up here. Here's my question back to you, and that is, eBay gets into this game. People realize these are NFTs being sold on eBay. NFTs all of a sudden now have a new, 400 million people that they have access to, or is it 600 million right now, globally in terms of a marketplace, that's dwarfing the size of all the marketplaces around NFTs in a cumulative nature. What happens to the old marketplaces? What happens to OpenSea? What happens to all of these other potentials out there?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's something I ask myself every day. eBay, again, Amazon, these are some of the biggest names in not only tech, but they've been around for years. And at this point, I think decades. And so when it comes to brands people know, trust, and love, they're going to immediately go to the places like eBay and Amazon to purchase their NFTs when they have policies that protect the consumer. And some of these places like OpenSea in the macro space, there's not really a lot of consumer protection or really any kind of policies. And when you have a giant, war chest of, just cash on hand like eBay and Amazon, you better believe they're probably going to disrupt the space in a big way, whether that's their own marketplace or they integrate these digital collectibles with platforms maybe like VeVe or something like that. Which, speaking of which, partner or big brands like Lamborghini still dropping on platforms like VeVe. Curious what your thoughts were about this, Paul, and kind of what you thought of this drop as a whole, kind of watching Porsche essentially kind of fail and flop originally on their drop. What's your thoughts about this Lamborghini drop on VeVe?
First of all, fantastic. I mean, just the art itself, in my opinion, when you think about Lamborghini and the perfect culture aspect of this whole crowd, from the aspect of Moon Lambo. But the point being is that you have a major car brand, a luxury car brand that has been able to successfully navigate this. And again, it starts to set the framework of what is expected for future brands to roll out. So I think this was a successful win there. Even though I was a little surprised that there wasn't as much of an opportunity in terms of the total volume. And I know, overall, I kind of expected maybe a little bit higher, threshold for a Lamborghini, NFT aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, VeVe is still early on in the early days, and I think we'll see kind of that volume return as we go back to being in a bull market eventually. But there's certainly some dynamics. Again, we're in a bear market and kind of crypto winter, and that does play a part into it. But as we can see here on the charts, the buyer percentage has gone up about 100%.
Yep.
As well as new active wallets. And you can see, there on the chart, definitely some user growth, and especially around this Lamborghini drop. So very curious how this plays out long term as well.
Well, this is also translating even over to the OMI token. I mean, OMI token we've seen go up dramatically just in the last 24 to 48 hours. So again, good news for NFTs, good news for digital collectibles. I think this also just showcases VeVe as one of the power players in the marketplace. The likelihood of all this integration into eBay, what that might look like. Remember, eBay acquiring TCGPlayer. This is another big factor that plays into this too, because this to me, as I said earlier in the show, this starts to lay the groundwork. These acquisitions are very strategic and very timely. And I think eBay is getting ready to do something very unique.
Yeah, I totally agree here. And it says there in that article, that total deal value is, basically valued at 295 million. And as you see on TCGPlayer, you have some very notable brands on there: Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon. Yeah, the P word, as we say in the VeVe community, Pokemon. And so definitely this catches, my attention for sure, and what VeVe's overall or what eBay's overall plan is here. And again, going back and tying back into their vault when it comes to collectibles, cards, luxury items, they could absolutely disrupt the space in a very easy way for consumers again to collect some of these collectibles. And as you mentioned earlier in the video, talking about how there's been problems authenticating some of these physical items and how they're tackling that. So curious what your thoughts are on eBay Vault. Will they kind of tie in Web3 into this as well? Curious what your thoughts are, Paul.
Okay, so you just hit on something to me that really could tie this whole thing up into a perfect bow, and that is the fact that we're going to see smart contracts and integrations of KnownOrigin and the potential for that. If you could imagine selling a pair of Air Jordans All right. And the authenticity question mark always comes into play. But if you could apply a smart contract to the true authentic one, and that in some way has an ability to transmit with the ownership of those Air Jordans, that's where I think the Web3 component, they do this on luxury watches as well, is they have an authenticity department. I've watched a couple of very in-depth videos of how they authenticate and going into, especially luxury watches, because there's some great fakes out there right now. So that to me is the hard part for the physical goods. The digital goods, a little bit easier because of just smart contracts and those integrations. So I think it's something that eBay already sees. If they're going to be able to grow those luxury goods and collector goods markets, that they've got to get their authenticity down. They see what's happening over here with NFTs and digital collectibles and saying, not having a problem over here, maybe there's a tie-in for all this technology to work its way into the overall marketplace. So that's where I think eBay could really change things if they get to that level, which is only going to make them, look at this right here. This is the vault right here. And I'm thinking, gosh, I mean, you go back into just what they're doing in terms of the app, obviously everything from collectors cards and so on. This is pretty fantastic overall. Here's their app right here. I want to jump over to this one. Here's the price guide beta. This is kind of interesting here of how price guides could start to. This to me is almost like OpenSea. In essence, if you get a price guide app built into your eBay tool, now you've got searchability, history, all, just like what you do when you're bidding on anything within eBay right now. Very interesting.
Absolutely. And just like you said, there could be a Web3 tie-in. I think it just makes sense. They already have the name eBay Vault. It just makes sense. And they could add a Web3 wallet to this and have authenticated NFTs or kind of like blue check marks, what OpenSea kind of does, and do something very similar to this. And I could see this being very successful, especially knowing that eBay, again, a trusted platform, instead of going to another option that is, harder to validate some of these NFTs like OpenSea, for example.
Yeah, I was just playing the Vault video here from eBay, and if you kind of look at what their strategy is from a digital collectible aspect, I mean, God, this has so much VeVe-ness in it.
Yeah,
I feel like because the opportunities, I think here, one, collector community is huge. Two, now you're opening this up to a lot of new people as well. This is the question I have. You and I both, we've been on eBay before, but does it draw in the Zoomers and kind of this next generation of game collectors, digital collectors, all of that? Or does it hit a market target, that audience that might be a little bit older, which is typically what the eBay crowd is? Are you concerned with that in any way?
Yeah, I'm slightly concerned with that, but I think they'll go with their bread and butter, which has been collectors, and they know the collector community very well. Versus Amazon, I think Amazon takes a little bit different route when they enter the space fully, where they have almost 3 games out now. In terms of Amazon, they obviously purchased Twitch years ago, so I could see Amazon go a little bit different route than eBay, and eBay continue to focus on what they're good at, which is collectors at heart. So I know that's what a VeVe term is, but I think that eBay will go. Yeah. I know. I think eBay will just continue to stick with what they're good at there. So
this is a good one, Kyle. Lots happening here for sure. I think this is going to set the tone for how Web 2 starts to see the vision for what Web 3 can be, and bringing Web 2 businesses into a Web3 environment, which to me is the ultimate, because it starts to affect so many different marketplaces, so many different industries. eBay could be just the very beginning of the iceberg. Leaving on this note, and that is this OMI chart. Crazy movement here. Again, some, I think, look back on, the launch of the Lamborghini, very successful, but still OMI not being listed on any major exchanges, even though they kind of got listed on another exchange over the weekend. But I just imagine what this is going to do when they actually get listed on something like Binance or Coinbase.
And speaking of which, there was a tweet, where David Yu is going to be on one of Binance New Zealand's, AMAs. So kind of maybe people speculating a little bit there, but I totally agree. I mean, once they have, one of that tier 1 exchange listings, I think we could see a lot of movement there in the OMI token.
Yeah, for sure. Kyle, it's always fun getting into it today. We'll definitely have you back on, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Pleasure to join, and we'll see you next time.